After 13 years of war and more than 350,000 dead, Syria is a shadow of its former self. But with Bashar al-Assad gone at the start of December, many are now daring to dream of a different future. I'm Anelise Borges, and this is The Stream.
The first couple of days after the fall of the regime were very terrifying for all of us. Only a few days, the big chaos ended. I've been also hearing good news that in the next couple of days, Jordan is going to help us with electricity in Damascus, and Turkey is going to help other cities in Syria also with electricity.
Like, our water pressure doesn't work if there's no electricity. Also hearing a lot of houses still getting broken into and robbed.
I've had multiple interactions with our new military, I guess. Actually, like, everything is really safe and no one bothers anyone, and random people pretending to be the military and creating chaos and problems and telling people what to do, what to say, how to wear.
I'm one of, like, what you could consider a minority. Like, all we could do is wait and see if things could actually get to where we want it to. And time will answer all our questions.
That was Naya Ali, a resident of Damascus, sharing her daily thoughts with us since the ousting of Assad 6 weeks ago. As the country sits at the cusp of a new era, we ask Syrians what a free Syria feels like and the challenges ahead. For that, let's go to Damascus, where we're joined by Abdullah Alokaily, a researcher who was displaced during the war, but was not able to leave the country. Abdullah, can I please ask you for a glimpse of what life in Syria is like at the moment?
Hi, Anelise. Thank you for having me. So, first of all, after the fall of the Assad regime on the 8th of December of 2024, there was a lot of concerns and fears on the streets, and that is absolutely justified. Normalcy was not a thing in Syria to begin with, but life seemed as it was going to get a bit harder. However, since then, we have seen a return of, not a return of normalcy, however, a creation of a new type of norm. The streets, as you can see, we are here in center Damascus in a major market, which is called Sha'lan Street. As you can see, it's bustling with life. People still have their worries and their eyes up ahead. However, there's also space for hope for the first time. So that is something that we did not have room for. As you mentioned, for example, I could not leave Syria in the past few years. However, now that was mainly because I was stuck in Syria with a Syrian passport and had that kind of a, let's say, general outlook that you could not escape the country neither nor be accepted elsewhere. However, now my hopes and the hopes of many other Syrians actually have a chance of being realized. So that is something new to us Syrians. We are not used to it. And we still have to keep our eyes on the ball. We have to keep our eyes ahead and focus on the kind of country that we want to have, not just the kind of country that we got rid of after the Assad's downfall.
I love the smile on your face as you're talking about hope. It's very powerful. I know you don't want to look back at the country that was, but you lost a lot in the war, including your father, who was killed in a regime strike. Can you tell us a little bit about what you went through over the last 13, almost 14 years?
The artillery bombardment was too heavy on us that a barrage struck a family's home, and me and my father went to help. My father, as a medical doctor who was besieged in his own hospital for almost 50 days. However, as we were making our way to that family's home, unfortunately a shell fell right next to us and my father passed away almost immediately. Afterwards, I was displaced, and I come from an activist background in my own city, whether in the protests or as a citizen journalist trying to document what the Assad regime atrocities were. So we moved to moved to Damascus, where Assad's stronghold was. So after arriving at Damascus in almost 2013, 2014, I had to kind of keep under the radar. I was still in high school back then, by the way. So I had to keep under the radar. Whenever I would pass a checkpoint, I would sometimes be brought out of the car to be investigated separately and let the car move because I might be picked out at that checkpoint. which happened to a lot of people, actually.
Amazing. Thank you so much. You did cover my question and more. And now for a more in-depth look into Syria's past under Assad, but also the future. We're joined by Waad al-Kateab, a Syrian filmmaker and activist who was displaced by the war. Her film, For Sama, received a BAFTA and was nominated for an Oscar. Alfreda Milo, an activist and human rights advocate who carried out helping underground humanitarian projects during Assad's rule. Robin Yassin Kassab, the co-author of Burning Country, Syrians in Revolution and War, and the English editor of the ISIS Prisons Museum. And Diab, Serriya, the director of the Sednaya Prison Detainees Association, a survivor himself who spent 5 years in detention there. Thank you all so much for your time. Diab, I would like to start with you and with Sednaya. Amnesty International says that the prison held between 10,000 and 20,000 detainees and that 13,000 people were executed there in the first 6 years after the uprising in 2011. The victims were overwhelmingly ordinary civilians who were thought to oppose the government. Many were held without charge or after unfair trials. Survivors report systematic daily beatings, torture, starvation, and horrible conditions. To many Syrians, Sednaya is a symbol of how brutal Assad was. I want to ask you about that because you were held there for 5 years. Can you share with us what you went through and how that scarred you?
Yeah, actually, I arrested in Sednaya prison from 2006 until 2011. At that time, if I say it's in the prison, there is a human rights violation, there is torture, but not after the 2011. After 2011, the Sednaya prison, it became like a death camp. Everyone go there. You go to there not for the systemic torture, just to kill, to die. A lot of testimonies, a lot of people, we interview a lot of people and talking about the situation there. No food, no medical care. In ADMSP, our research or our numbers, we think the Syrian regime killed at least 30,000 detainees at Sednaya prison, at least. And all of this, the bodies of all of these detainees didn't, the families didn't deliver the body, and the regime put these people in mass grave around Damascus, around the Damascus countryside, in Al-Haifa, in Najha, in Jisr, Baghdad. So it's really, a very big story. And now it's after 8 December, and now all the media outlet, all the journalists go there, and we start see what happened in Sednaya, and we start see how this place it's like really it's not a normal prison. It's not a normal. It's really it's a death camp.
Yeah, we're looking at pictures right now, and it really is like nothing we've seen before. And by what you're saying, it gotten even worse. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, this is a place when you are now showing on the TV. This is under the ground. It's one floor under the ground, and no light, no good water, and also for the WC, and it's really very, very bad. And here in this place, you see a lot of people killed here under the torture. A lot of people died here because there is no water, no food, no medical care. Some people killed here from the cold because also there is no heating system here. Oh my God. Yeah. So this is and this is one of the we call this place, it's a black hole after 2000. From 2011 until 2000, until the December 8th, really it became a black hole. No one, very, very few people survive from this prison.
And obviously a stain, right, in Syria's past. We're going to talk a little bit more about the work your organization does and what you're hearing from people who were detained and who survived after 2011. But I want to also ask Waad about your film. For Sama is one of the most poignant descriptions I have ever seen of what Syrians were fighting for during the revolution. Let's take a quick look at a clip from it, and then I'll ask you about what happened to you.
لسه عم صور. هذا الشيء اللي عم بيخلي معنا لوجودي. ما حدا منا كان عنده أي فكرة كيف رح تتغير حياتنا للأبد.
حمزة أنا حامل. سما سما
سما عملت هالفيلم مشانك. بدي إياك تفهمي شو اللي كنا عم نقاتل مشانه.
بحبك كثير أكثر من أصلا في ضرب كثير اليوم.
After facing all that, you and your family were ultimately forced to flee your country, and I don't think anyone can fully understand what that means unless they go through it. I want to ask you, what did Assad represent to you?
Thank you so much first for having us. It's really hard to talk after listening to Diab. I think it's an experience we didn't even understand, and I don't think even until now, or even in the next years, we would really understand what Assad did presented before or still present until today. To be honest, like, it's just 1 month and 10 days. And until that point, you know, we were in totally different circumstances, different like experience and life. And now it's totally, it should be the other way around. You know, we should be happy today. We should feel like relief, and it's definitely we are, and there's now a big space of hope. But the trauma that we carry, the responsibility that we still carry, you know, everything happened over all these years. Like, yes, no one can really, even ourselves, understand the impact of this, even recently, I think. However, you know, looking at all these pictures from Sednaya, all the families that now touring around, you know, Damascus and other cities looking for their beloved ones until now. And us as refugees who still are outside, I couldn't go back yet. And I think so many people still like me in this position. You know, we were trying to fight for the last minute to stay there. We couldn't, so we had to leave. And now we want to be back, but unfortunately, the complication around this situation, it's more complicated than we even thought.
And you've built lives for yourselves outside, so it's not like you can just drop your life and go back. I understand that, yeah.
Yeah, but even if you want to do this, you know, but your paperwork, it's not allowing you to go back. There's so many complications around, you know, like where to go back, what's going on there, what's waiting there. And however, you know, like, I think the hope with all of this complication is the main kind of feeling we all have. We achieved something as the Syrian people, like it wasn't possible, you know, before December 2024.
Alfreda, I want to bring you in because you've managed to enter Syria throughout the past decade to basically smuggle aid in and to continue working in underground humanitarian projects. What did you see happen under Assad? I mean, now this is a country where 90% of the population lives under the poverty line. Infrastructure is in shambles. what have you witnessed, and what is going to stay with you in terms of concerns for the present and the future?
The politicization of humanitarian aid in Assad regime-held areas was very, very obvious, especially after the earthquake in 2023, which is one of the biggest projects when I smuggled money, when I entered with US dollars, basically, and not going through the government channels of bringing in aid. And I remember how hard it was to access certain groups of the Syrian population in Latakia that were IDPs. It was a higher risk area of getting caught by the Syrian intelligence. It was trickier to even gain the trust of the people when doing cash assistance, because the project that me and my friends did was distributing cash money for rent assistance to give people, Syrians, the agency to decide how to spend that money. And obviously, sectarianism also played a huge role in that. One of the reasons why I was able to constantly enter Syria without getting the attention that would put me even at higher risk was because I am part of a minority. I am a part of the Christian Assyrian minority that gave me less attention and allowed me to do these projects.
And that is fascinating, and is going to be very interesting to see how that plays out in the future, because there are many concerns on the part of minorities right now, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But Robin, I want to bring you in because, as we've been discussing here, so many traumas that are still being process. It's going to take a very long time for Syrians to actually come to terms with everything that's happened, and obviously for us to fully understand the damage that was inflicted. But after 13 years of war, Assad fell in 2 weeks. Were you surprised? And tell me a little bit about the present and the challenges ahead. Can the new administration rule the entire country?
Well, that's two questions, but the first one is, was I surprised? Yes, I was. I mean, on the one hand, I knew that it was unsustainable. I knew that this regime had lost the trust of almost the entire population, even people who in previous years had been loyalists, so-called. By, December 2024, almost all of those people had lost faith in the regime. It was the economy had been destroyed, the infrastructure had been destroyed, and there was no future. People couldn't see any future with this regime. So it was only held in place by Russia and Iran. And because both of those states were busy elsewhere, they had problems elsewhere, Ukraine with Israel. As a result, the whole thing fell very fast. The other factor, the final factor that allowed the regime to fall very fast was that the rebels behaved in a way which was much more disciplined and much more politically intelligent than ever before. That was the final factor. And that comes on to your next question, can the country be ruled? Is there something to look forward to? And I hope so. I mean, there are enormous problems. There's almost too much to talk about. There's so much to do. The country has to be brought under one leadership. At the moment, at least a quarter of the country is still not under one leadership. We've still got Israel advancing on one part of the country. Turkey is present in part of the country. There's the PKK or the SDF. There are all kinds of external enemies. And then there are lots of internal tensions too. But as I said, the rebels, even though they have a questionable background, are at the moment behaving in a very politically and socially intelligent manner. They seem to understand that they can't rule Syria by themselves. They don't have the manpower at the moment to rule Syria by themselves. So they are working well with other people so far.
But that is definitely going to be a challenge going forward, isn't it? I mean, you have a fractured country by all measures. Diab, as I mentioned at the start, you created an association for survivors of Sednaya, and you've been, I imagine, talking to those coming out of the prison since Assad fled. Have you gotten a chance to encounter these people or the families of those looking for their loved ones? Can you tell us a bit about the situation right now with all these survivors?
Actually, from 8 December until the 1st of this year, we received around 4,000 requests from the families looking for loved ones, looking for the son, for the husband. Yeah, and also the situation of the new survivor or the released detainees, until now, it's not stable. It's very bad because there is no healthcare system, no good healthcare system in Syria, and the organization and the international organization, it's some delay to give the services for these detainees. There is some of this of the detainees have a problem with the body, with the health, with also the psychological trauma. Yeah, it's a very, very, very sad situation. But we work with these people. We work with the families to keep this, to keep the voices. In the new administration, we should listen to the families, to the detainees, to the mothers.
Because this is going to be a crucial point, I would say, in terms of going forward and building a new Syria, right? Discovering the truth, actually figuring out everything that has happened and naming the culprits and potentially accountability, even though I imagine this is going to be a huge challenge. I'm so sorry, we're almost out of time, and I want to get from each one of you a sense of the current challenges, but also your hopes for the future. Very briefly, if you will. Diab, let me start with you. Going forward, what would you like to see happen for a new Syria to emerge?
Yeah, and the new Syria, we need no torture, no forced disappearance. No one can go to the prison to just talking about someone in the government. Yeah, we need to stop all this, and we need the truth. We need to know all the names of the detainees in the Sednaya prison who are go there in this all of this year. This is this is our dream, actually.
Waad, what about you? What are the main challenges right now that should be the focus of this administration, and what is your hope for Syria?
I think it's definitely, the country is no longer for one family, for one name, for one group. It is democratic, free, respectful country for its own all people in an equal way. I think what we've learned over these, not just these 13 years, but also 54 years, is like whatever we've been through, it will never happen again. And that's where we all should be focusing on. There's a huge future ahead, and we are all part of that. And there's no way, we could live in a country again where forced disappearance or displacement or bombing and shelling is part of our present. It is the history. It's something we will never be able to come over or forget, and we don't want to forget. And it's all start today with justice.
Alfreda, what about your views as a minority? As you said, what are your worries right now, and what do you hope for the future of Syria?
I think my biggest worry is that the sectarian narrative that the Assad regime has used to manipulate us will be continued now out of fear. So it is definitely a constitution that very clearly states the protection of minorities, and that includes language, that includes ethnic groups, their traditions, and to move on beyond just being reduced to religious minorities. But at the same time, I also do hope, and I actually have to say I am positively surprised that my community, the Assyrian community, as well as many other minority groups, have so far shown a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of trust and hope. But I do think for the large number of minorities that have left Syria, they do need more than just promises to come back. And this is something that we urgently need because Syria has lost a huge number of its minority groups, and we are an important part of Syria's tapestry.
Robin, Diab, Waad, and Alfreda, thank you so much for being part of the stream today. And thank you all for tuning in. If you have a comment about our show, you can talk to us on social media. Use the hashtag or the handle AJStream, and we will look into your feedback. Take care, and I'll see you soon.